I'm Malcolm Roberts and I'm here with Keith Gordon, the farmer who owns this property. We're about an hour out of Longreach, about 90 k's. And we're just going to have a chat. Keith, how long have you been here?
I've been here for 52 years.
52?
52 years. I'm a fourth generation farmer on this land. Malcolm, we came here with the railway line and haven't left since.
And what do you like about it here?
It's a great way of life. You've got droughts, you've got floods. You can walk out one morning and say, I'm fencing this morning, but if you don't feel like fencing, you can go and do windmills or something like that. You're not, although you have to work to a sort of a program, what you decide to do is what you do.
But there's always something to do.
Always something to do. And I think we probably work maybe the hardest in probably all of Australia. We go from daylight till dark.
But you must love being under these open skies. You know, the stars are just absolutely amazing out here.
They are good, and it's really good to go out. We have a little group where we go to just a grid which is on a road, and we cook up a few sausages and look at the stars and talk about life out here and our problems. That's just an impromptu thing you can just go and do anytime you want.
Just a group of cockies or townspeople as well?
Anyone that wants to come along, that's in the area. We have a lot of people that visit us. Throughout the year, we probably have 20 to 30 people come through and stay here. And
in your place?
On our place. We don't normally say no to anybody. Just the fact that the people that we do know, a lot of them are repeat return. They come back and stay again.
Okay. And the work never ends, like you said. So that means you just have to let some things slide, because you've got far more to do than you could do.
What there's an art to it, really, Malcolm. What you do is you don't have everything spick and span all the time. You have a program where you, like with waters, you'll go through and upgrade so many waters every year. With your fencing, you'll go through and upgrade so much fencing every year.
So you've got a bit of an overall plan.
You have an overall plan. So what you're doing is actually you're renewing the worst of what you've got, but if you build it all, make it all flash, make it all new, it all falls down together. And when you've got hundreds of k's of fencing to do, it's not a...
Hundreds of kilometres of fencing?
Hundreds of kilometres of fence we have. But anyway.
So what are some of the skills that you have to master? Because you're a boilermaker, you're an electrician.
I think they refer to
road
us
grader
as jack of all trades, master of none, I think, half the time. But
from what I've seen, you've got to be master of quite a few, mate.
But you have to. You have to be an adapter, a copier.
You have to be very good at teamwork with other farmers, even though you're working.
You have to. Well, this life out here, you must get on with your next door neighbours because you don't have many of them. And if you don't get on with your next door neighbours, it becomes a very lonely place.
So it's a bit of a community out here, even though you're not in Longreach, you're an hour away.
Correct. We have our own communities. Yeah. Any rural area, you'll have there will be a community of some sort.
Yeah. But you're also connected with the Longreach community pretty intimately, aren't you? Because I've heard that when you walk down the street, a lot of people say g'day to you, and they know you around town quite a bit.
No, I suppose being a fourth generation, but the dynamics of Longreach are also changing. I can go down the street back in the 80s and know nearly everybody. The climate today, you'll go down and you'll know probably 15% of the people, and you've got a lot of transient people coming through. You've got
I heard that.
A lot of tourists, which are good. They're very good for the town. It's funny out here. My sister-in-law commented on it. She said, "When you're out here, you're somebody. People might not know who you are, but they know where you fit in.
Yep.
When you're in a city, you're just a face."
Come back to your jack of all trades, master of none. But let's go through some of the things you have to do on your own or with your wife, Jenny, right? You showed us a trough you installed, and you showed us that you're going to have to make a fence around that trough so that the sheep don't get into the trough. You've got to put bores in, you've got to connect up with electricity in places, and we'll come back to that in a minute, but you also have to grade roads, maintain roads, you have to build fences, you have to now build a dog-proof fence that keeps wild dogs out. You have to then repair these fences economically. You have a flood, and kilometres will be ripped out.
Correct.
And then you've got to rebuild that. What else have you got to do? You've got to be a marketer. You've got to know, and you've got to be a good economist, because you've got to know when to get into the market, out of the market. Some farmers raise their own herds. Other people trade, don't they? They fatten them up and then sell them. So you've got to be a weather, what do you call it, a forecaster?
Forecaster.
You've got to understand weather and climate patterns.
You try and understand climate patterns. But you have to have to do all those things, you need to have self-motivation.
Yeah.
I've known people that have been in this industry that are incredibly apt in a lot of those things that you've said, but they've failed because they need someone to tell them to do it. You need that insight that you might go past the dam and go, that sail looks to be loose on that windmill, so next time I come back I must climb up it and fix it. So if you don't have that insight to go up and fix that mill before it breaks down or something like that, the old adage is stitching time saves nine. If you're replacing a sail that's probably worth $45 versus replacing a head that's probably worth $300 to $400. So in that, and plus the labour, but you must be able to have that insight as well.
And you've also got to be mindful and responsible for your own safety the whole time, because there's no mobile phone coverage here. You've got to get back to your property for a phone. If something happens, like you told me about death adders here, they're only about 6-7 inches long.
Only little fellas.
Little fat fellas. Yep. And then they can kill you in half an hour.
But you do, if you're brought up here, you've lived here all your life, you common sense is a big thing. You know what to do and what not to do. In summertime, we have a lot of trouble with people arriving here and walking out the door with a litre bottle of water. In the middle of summer, before lunch, you're going to drink at least 15 litres of water, or
15,
or nearly. You do drink. If it's really, really dry, you drink a lot of water. But yet, someone will walk out with a cap, a water bottle, a little litre water bottle, and be in trouble. So it's not their fault. That they just never had to think about those sort of things. And here in summer, it's horrible. It's hot.
And crisp in the winters in the morning.
Yeah, we have a couple of cold days in the morning. Yeah, it's amazing. Some winters are cold, some winters aren't.
Thanks for putting us up in the shearing quarters. They're not the Hilton, but mate, they're comfortable.
Marginally better than camping.
You also have gone into other businesses because that's part of your drought proofing strategy. I know Sharon Lose, for example, wonderful lady. She's our candidate in Callide in the state election, and she'll probably be running in the federal election for Maranoa or Flynn. But Sharon told me that what her parents and her grandparents used to do was, in the good years, they'd have the discipline to put the money away into buying shares and something like that, invest it, and then in the tough years, they would then sell those shares and rely on that income. What are some of the things you're doing?
Well, we've got there's a scheme today that called farm management deposits, and when you have a good year, you can ferret that money into a FMD, which gives you interest. You mustn't touch that money for 12 months, but you can leave that money there for a period of time.
So you don't pay tax on that money?
You don't pay tax on that money.
You just invest it?
Yep, you invest it. Now, that's untaxable money, but when you draw back that money when you have a drought or something's going wrong, you can elect to bring that money back. That's when that money is then classed as income,
right?
Which goes,
So you minimise tax
so you
that way.
can minimise tax that way, but it's a good tool that we can use when things are good. we can put money away for when times are bad. After having a 6-year failed, this is probably, if it doesn't rain this summer, it'll be 7, failed summer rainfall, we're sort of getting pretty good with droughts. We know that you can only go with what, anyone can only go with what rainfall they've had and what feed they've got. So an FMD in good years, when you have those bumpy years, when your commodity prices are good, and you don't need to put investments into infrastructure or something like that, it's a good tool.
But don't be so modest, mate, because you've also gone into other business ventures. Some in Brisbane, 2 in Brisbane. That right?
We've got 2 shops in Brisbane. We went into shops in Brisbane to diversify for when we have droughts. It's all it's a good thing. It's good to have a foot in each camp. We get money every week from these shops in Brisbane, so we're not doing it as tough as what some other people are.
But the old myth that you cockies just sit back and watch the grass grow and every couple of days you wash your brand new Mercedes, that they're gone.
I think that myth,
if they were ever there.
I think that Malcolm, that myth probably came in the 1950s when I think wool was worth £1 a pound or something like that. No, those days are long gone. The avenues to create wealth on the land now is really governed by things that we can't control. We can't control commodity prices, and we can't control our weather. If we could control those two things, it would be a lot better way of making money. But I suppose without being able to control those two major points of our lifestyle, we are probably some of the biggest gamblers around.
Yeah, you are big risk takers, and how much does it cost you to put up that dog fence now to keep the wild dogs out?
Our cluster, we put up, we spent $350,000.
That's the whole cluster?
On the whole cluster to put the fence up, and that was, fortunately we were subsidised with that. But without spending that money, we were going backwards. Every year. We can't run a place this size for under $60,000. So when you're not making
every year, that's your
all your fixed costs.
Fixed costs.
Yep. Your insurance, your rates, your rent, all that sort of things. Yeah. So before you, so you need to make that money every year just to stay afloat.
So drought or no drought?
You've
got 60 grand plus. You've got
probably in a drought that cost goes up because your fuel costs go up because you're doing more waters. You're buying lick and things like that. So you need to make that amount of money every year. And when you don't make that amount of money every year, the next year you're that far behind, and it just keeps growing and growing. So
you can quickly get into huge debt.
You can, and it's just a spiral downwards then if you don't. So we've gone and done this fence, and for the last 2 years we've had very little income due to dogs and to drought. But now with our fence up, we're able to have good lambings. We're now coming back. We've actually this year we've sold sheep, and we haven't sold our cattle yet, but we've sold sheep, and we are now able to. We've got a wool clip in, so we've got income. So we're back into a positive cash flow.
Okay. So one of the things is that they've got very big expenditure and also very big risk, because you can't tell what the rain's going to be doing in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years.
We'd like to.
And your business is really simple. What happens is you've got good soil here, so you're fortunate that way, you've selected well. It depends on your rain. If you get good rain, then you get good grass. If you get good grass, your lambs get fatter quicker, they grow quicker, your cattle grow quickly, they put on weight, you can sell them quicker, and you can make much more money. But in the droughts, you've got to be very ruthless and disciplined. This is where you came back. You know, a lot of people think farming is about taking it easy, sitting back, but you've got to be extremely disciplined because you can't forecast the rain. So therefore, you've got to, as the rainfall decreases, you've got to then suddenly say, okay, we're not going to get rain, and you've just got to ruthlessly sell.
What we do, Malcolm, is we'll have what everybody does is they maintain their core breeding herd.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you might have, say, 10,000 sheep. Of that 10,000 sheep, you might have 5,000 ewes. That's your breeding herd. So what you do, you'll even sell the ewes down to what you think you can carry in a drought. And mind you, a lot of us, after 4 generations, we've had a lot of droughts.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's natural out here.
We'll have droughts. This won't be the last drought. It'll come again.
It's not the worst one.
Yeah, no,
it's not the worst one by a long way.
But what we do, we say, okay, with our weathers, if it hasn't rained by December 16, they're going. So December 16 comes around, hasn't rained, bang, they're gone. Then
so you've got to be a shrewd investor, a disciplined investor.
You have to, and you have to get rid of them before the condition goes on them. So once they're down and they're bony and you can't transport them, you're in trouble. So you try, but the other thing is, before you know you're in a drought, you've probably been in a drought for 2 months.
Yeah.
So, and all of us think, oh no, it's going to rain. It'll always rain, but it doesn't.
Because farmers are also optimists, aren't you?
We are, and
otherwise you wouldn't be here.
And you know, you'll hang on to something and hang on and say, oh, it's going to rain when it doesn't.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you have to say, well, righto, we've got this much feed. It hasn't rained. They've got to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
what would you like people in the city to know about farming? Anything in particular? They depend. We in the city depend upon you for our food and our fibre.
We would probably I have just raised. Well, we have just raised out of Brisbane in one of my shops $22,000 for drought aid.
Wow.
For farmers. The people who gave that money, and we raised it very quickly, the people that gave that money, they just gave. So there is that feel for the people in the bush that are doing it tough.
Mm-hmm.
What we would like, it's a hard question, Malcolm. We're a funny bunch. We don't actually like receiving money because...
Yeah, I've heard that in town.
Because we are independent, we like to do our own things, and receiving money from someone donating it is sort of admitting failure, I suppose would be the word. But if that money wasn't given and people taking it, a lot of farmers would go to would find it very hard, especially with food and things like that.
So even basic things for some farmers, it comes down to actually keeping themselves and their families alive with food.
Yeah. When it gets really, really bad, you can't. Fortunately, we haven't been in a position, but I know of a lot of people, they actually can't afford to buy food.
And one of the things that I realised in town yesterday, talking to some of the shopkeepers, business owners, listening to them, they said that there's some resentment that people forget about them, because when the farmers do it tough, they stop spending money.
Correct.
That means the townspeople do it tough.
Malcolm,
and no one's giving them. Is there any thought to when people make donations that money must be spent in the area? Would that be a solution, or
what we tried to do is that money that's raised goes to a voucher for a business in a local town.
So they must spend it in the
So
town.
if it's, say it's a food works or a food store or something like that, there's a $50 voucher for that farmer to go to that local store
In Longreach.
and buy from
Right.
that store.
Okay.
And not only are you feeding the farm, but you're also giving the person in the town an income. So it's a twofold win.
Going around northern and western Queensland and southwestern Queensland, it's becoming clear that the regions are really being hit hard. Things like the native vegetation clearing legislation, which is really a theft of property rights, and things like the live cattle export ban, which came on suddenly and wasn't really justified at all. Things like the Murray-Darling Basin Plan in the southern parts of Queensland. And those kinds of things really, when I was chairing the Senate Select Inquiry into lending to primary production customers, it was quite often a government action that triggered the farmers, and so they then started falling into default with banks. So you can see the government is quite, at times, quite irresponsible in some of their policies. Governments of all political persuasions.
Correct. It's the interference sometimes is good, but where you've got that government interference with the live export ban out of the northern regions to Indonesia, etc., that was a twofold effect. That what happened is all those cattle came down to the southern countries, and that really hurt not only the northern part of Australia, but also hurt all the southern
whole
part.
country.
The whole country got hurt by it. It was a really, really challenging time, and that could have been avoided. So that side of things.
So that was a case, in some ways, of a government reacting to a media program that wasn't really accurate.
I didn't see the program, but if that is the case, that is bad. That's what shouldn't happen. We shouldn't let that happen. But that was a 12 to probably 15 month period of utter doom and gloom. That created a lot of debt, especially in the northern part of Australia, and it's actually hurt a lot of eastern Australia as well.
Yep. You also, we have talked, and other people around town have talked about the cuts that were made in government services back in the LNP's government a few years ago. Really decimated the bush, because I think Longreach, someone told me, one of the business owners told me, lost about 40 public servants, and they each had families, and so they impacted on the schools, the hospitals and other things, and those people just left. The whole community suffered because they left, and I think Longreach has gone down in population, I was told, from 3,500 to about 2,700, and when they're reinstated as public servants under the current Labor government, they're reinstated in the southeast. That's a cause too, isn't it?
That's one of the a bad thing for a small town, because you're losing that employee, that government employee. You're losing a teacher, you're losing an ambulance driver. The flow-on effect to that has been devastating for our Longreach area. It's
I heard the same in Charleville.
Same in Charleville.
And
probably any of the
places.
major government centres, it's probably right the way through Roma probably as well. But what's wrong is they've not only that, but they've also taken a lot of the programs that they were doing in the rural regions of Queensland. They've shut them down. So
The DPI office is almost empty, isn't it?
It's just about
It's
gone.
boarded off.
It's and that office used to do. There used to be things, programs happening, or does this tree grow best, or whatever in that area. They were doing things, but now they've taken that away. They've taken the people away, and then they've put them back on in Brisbane, which is really, really bad.
And also the tone. Listening to people over the last 2 years, the tone has changed in government services. It used to be the DPI would be a wonderful provider of knowledge and support and assistance, information, science, and now some of the government departments are seen more as policemen so that they're watching which tree you cut down, and they become more cops rather than and ill-informed cops at that. So the government, the tone of government has changed. Is that something you've noticed?
I think in this area we did rely on the government departments. I think they can be great again. There's no
Make government departments great again.
Make government, well, at least bring the people back. But it's in this area here. The tree clearing issues, and probably for us, are not a big thing. The biggest thing that we've probably noticed with our trees, because we like trees, we need trees.
Yeah.
It's hot out here. The thing that we need here, we've noticed here, is that during the 6-year drought, a lot of our native trees have died.
So it's pretty severe.
So it's pretty severe. So really, the tree clearing issues, not a big thing here, but yet for someone who's on the coast or someone in northern parts of Queensland, probably it's a major issue. Something
that you share with city people is electricity costs. Now, you showed us that new water trough you put in to give water to your sheep.
Correct.
And you've put a power pole there. I noticed that, but there's no power wires. Why is that?
That power pole was put there long ago, and it was put there for...
How many years ago?
It was put there back in the 80s, so it's been there for a long time, and we've purchased this place in the 2000s, and no one's put a pump there, but the pole was there for electric pumps. Now, we took over the place, and we thought, well, we'd put a pump there because it's a power line going across a dam, and it's all there to just hook onto. But with the price of power now, it's just prohibitive to put a pump on it.
That's bloody ridiculous. Electricity was meant to free mankind, and now it's you can't even use it.
We've got if you've got a pump that's pumping a lot of water for a lot of things, it's, you'd probably stay with the electric pump. But where you don't have a big volume of water being pumped every week, you take them out, and it's solar or wind.
So you just, because you'd have, it's
just the cost of the power is just too much.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's unproductive.
Yeah, and a lot of things we as we know that are hurting the electricity costs, especially subsidies for renewables and so on.
I'm not saying that the electric pumps are unproductive, but just the cost of the power.
Cost of the power, which is ridiculous in our country. I know of two people that have just popped up in the last couple of weeks. They won't grow fodder now, and this is a bloody drought. They won't grow hay. They won't grow fodder because it costs too much to irrigate it.
Yep.
I mean, what's going on in this country? We had the cheapest power in the world, and now we've got the most expensive because of government policies.
One of our local publicans in Longreach, I think you've been there, Malcolm. He has
You've
sort
been
of
following me around?
Yeah, I haven't. He has actually sat back and thought about his $30,000 power bill, about generating it himself. And that's in the middle of Longreach.
I know of an RSL club in a town of only 4,500 people that one of the cafe owners told me cost them $12,000 a month in electricity. I know of another hotel in a regional town that it costs them $30,000 a year, same as the Longreach one.
But
I mean, this is ridiculous.
The shops in Brisbane that we have, it's not just here, it's statewide. That's one of our big input costs, power.
Yeah.
If you've got to heat something or cool something, it's expensive.
You also mentioned the household assistance program. That the protocol is difficult to follow, so not many people are using it.
Not difficult. The protocol makes a lot of people it denies them to access it, because it's set up that a lot of us don't qualify for it. So you're getting a large amount of money put in from the government for this thing, but yet no one can no one can access it.
Or very few people can access it.
Yeah.
So it looks good in a headline. The government's
Great
helping
in
out.
the headline, but no, not too many people get it.
Yeah. Okay. One of the other things that I noticed chairing the Senate inquiry into lending to primary production customers is that conventional businesses have a 12-month cycle, an annual cycle, right? And I can remember being in Missouri when I worked over in the United States, and I've been there about 5 years, and I was in Missouri, saw these huge green trees and acres of corn as far as you can see, lush and green. And the bloody farmer said to me, "Mate, it's tough, we're in a drought." And I said, "Oh yeah? How long since you've had rain?" He said, 7 weeks. They get rain regularly every year, okay? So it's a bit delayed, then they're suffering. Now, sometimes you won't have rain here for 7 years, decent rain. So one of the things I've noticed is that the financial cycle that you have to follow is still 12 monthly. But the business cycle is probably about 12 yearly, you know?
Yes, correct. What we, and that in itself is a little bit of a battle, because you've got to, like with going back with those FMDs, when you've got that massive influx, well, not a massive influx, but when you've got a good income, your seasons are right, all those sort of things, it's all great. But you know, you go 2-3 years with very little income, pretty hard to stay afloat.
Yeah, and so it has to be very, very well managed.
So you have to manage it, and what you do there is, you might have seen I'm driving a car that's 10-year-old. It doesn't cost me anything,
and the door doesn't open properly.
But that thing for driving around here is brilliant. It's not costing me any money. If I go and buy a new one, that's that money that I probably could put into water or into something else, even purchasing stock if it rains. So, you know, you draw that car out as long as you can, sort of thing.
So you've got to be good financial managers as well. You've got to understand the market.
Yep.
And farming is not just sitting back and watching the grass grow and your sheep getting fat. It's also different people have different strategies. Like you've got some land adjusted to someone, and you've also some people buy when everyone else is selling, and then they fatten up quickly. And so you've got a lot of different strategies you can follow.
What you do is, what we've done is, we had a little bit of spare feed. We had very little stock numbers, so what you do is you go and find someone with stock. And that way you can at least get an income. Then
they pay you so much a week per head.
They pay so much, and that it doesn't pay all the bills, but it'll pay, you know, all your main sort of fixed cost sort of things. You know, it might pay your rates, or it'll pay your insurance, or something, or maybe your fuel. But with marketing, in the last probably 10 years, we have a lot of different avenues to market now. And you've got to stay abreast of those new avenues of marketing, and some of them are for the better and some of them for the worse. But it's a lot easier now to market something statewide than what it was back in the 70s, 80s. You've got things like Auctions Plus. Just, you know, you can use your agents. Before it used to be just solely with an agent. They came out, they looked at it, they told you what they were worth, and the buyer would come out and buy them. But now a lot of it's done through a screen. You can actually sell smaller numbers now. Before you had to have large numbers to sell, but you know, that allows you, some people that don't have a big number to sell, they can sell. It's those sort of things that have changed. You've got to stay with them, change with them, otherwise you get left behind.
And before we finish off, I just want to thank you very much for the hospitality and letting us stay here. I think we'll end up staying about 3 nights. And Pauline's coming out tomorrow, and she's going to be here for overnight, and she's staying in town. But she's going out to a couple of properties and walking down the street and listening to business. It's very important for people to get out and listen, not just for a whistle stop or a photo opportunity, but to really engage with people and to listen.
I don't mind which party you are or who you are. It's important if you're going to make a decision on something that's going to affect someone that you think you have the right opinion on. It's wise to go through and get backgrounding and know what you're making a decision on is actually for that person, for the best for that person, or for the best thing. So you've got to know your people.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the secret to it.
And I think that the learning, I know I managed and was the general manager of underground coal mines, and I'd spend a lot of time underground just listening to people, because then because it's their safety, their future livelihoods at stake. So to make the best decisions, we'd listen to the people. And I can remember sometimes going underground and just sitting at the end of a long wall face and just being by myself for a while, because I thought in a much clearer, better way down there. And I noticed it today at the top of that creek. We see pictures of the dog fence, and they're long, straight, and you think, well, that's a piece of cake to just put that up. But then you showed us the bloody gullies, and you showed us that the water in a really serious flood. So I mean, we're talking about drought. In a really serious flood, the water will be rushing through those gullies, but it will also be rushing across the whole damn plain, and it'll be meters deep in the plain. And so your whole fence gets swept away. So you've got to come up with innovative solutions to let the fence rise and keep the dogs out. But so it's remarkable that you've got these extremes that you've also got to engineer your way around. And so you've got to be a designer, an engineer, and you've got to quickly fine-tune things based on experience. And you've got to be prepared for a flood that'll be tens of meters deep.
And that flood, you build it not to. That flood might be another 10 years away. So,
but it could be next week.
It could be next week, but you don't go and I don't think. Well, look at that. But you don't go and build something that's not going to happen. When you know what it is, you have to engineer it for the maximum.
Yeah. And it's hard to imagine that unless you're standing at the top of your highest gully, and you can say, well, in a really severe flood, this would be the highest it'll come to. But some of the gullies, like 10 metres deep.
Yeah, those gullies and that amount of water that comes down that creek, it's an awesome sight when you see it. Where we're sitting here, that water backs right up here. You can goes right up there, but there's it's a big volume of water, and it's very quick. It runs quickly. And
you told me that sometimes your skies will be clear, but you're in flood down here because of rainfall at Winton, 100 kilometres away.
Yeah, up near Winton. This catchment comes from a long, long way away, and it actually, we can have no rain and yet have green grass. Yeah.
So I really like the sound of parrots out here. I love the stars. And it's beautiful and clear. Great place for holidays in this region of inland Queensland. What do you like most about it? What do you appreciate?
I like the.
You better mention your wife.
The family life. I like the peacefulness.
Okay.
When I go to my shops in Brisbane, I'll be down there for a week. Within that week, I'm wanting to go back here. It's not that I don't like people. I don't. It's just you like that to be on your own, to have space.
So you like the freedom and
the freedom. Yeah.
Okay.
It's probably what most of us like. If you're unable to handle vast amounts of nothing, it's not your lifestyle.
Well, it is wonderful being out here, and it's been a real pleasure to stay here. Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for sharing some of your life with us today.
Okay, thank you very much, Malcolm.